Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is March 30th, 2022, and my name is Bruce. And the month is almost over, and it has been a good month. But let's take a look at the weather first. And the wind speed is 7.4 kilometers per hour, temperature 30.7 degrees Celsius, and the humidity is 69%. And well, it's sunny, but cloudy too. And it will rain again, unfortunately, but the days are getting better and the rain is getting less intense, thankfully, and hopefully that will stay the same as we move into April. And a happy birthday to Singaraja. This is the 418th anniversary of Singaraja, 418 years. Yes, and so lots of stuff has been going around the city, but I haven't seen a big parade like they used to have. I guess that's still out because of COVID. And hopefully that will be back again next year. And this is another good news video. I'm still pumped. More flights are coming in, and that's the main story. More visitors are coming in. Things are looking up. There's some interesting developments going on right now that may have some far-reaching impact on the businesses that are close to the shore in Bali. And I'm going to be talking about that in detail next week, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the wrap-up. I was watching Uncle Chan's Bali video on Padma Street, and Legion is looking pretty dead. I saw 3 tourists while he was walking around. Of course, none of them had masks on. And, well, you might want to take a look at that. That's up here, link up here. And in contrast to the video from the monkeys the other day in Canggu, which is just packed with foreigners, packed with locals, and of course, nobody's wearing masks. What else is new in Canggu? And so, we're getting a lot of people, but they all seem to be going to Canggu. I don't know what's happening in Ubud. I haven't seen any walking or driving tours around Ubud in the last couple of days. If you're down in Ubud, leave a comment about what things look like there in terms of foreigners and locals. The tourism business, are things starting to open up again? And there's the mask issue. As you know, Singapore yesterday stopped outdoor mask wearing. I was talking to a friend in Singapore last night. He said, yes, still have to do it inside, but outside, no more mask wearing. And so, well, he was kind of pleased about that. He's worried about getting the virus. And so, yeah, he's going to be cautious. And so with so many people now not wearing masks, especially the foreigners, is it time for the government to get rid of the mask wearing rule? Is that going to happen? Are they going to be watching Singapore? I'm all for getting rid of the outdoor mask wearing rules. I said the other day, having rules that aren't enforced, well, that happens a lot here, and well, it's just not good to get people to follow the rules. If they know that there's rules being made and nobody's enforcing them, yeah, that kind of gets a blanket global thing. Oh, well, hey, they don't enforce any rules, so why should we follow them? So we'll just have to wait and see. There are no rumors about that I've heard of, getting rid of the mask. And so let's move on to the numbers. And the numbers, well, they're neither good nor bad. They're basically the same as they were the other day, which is pretty good compared to where we were before. National new cases, 3,895. National recoveries, 10,092. National deaths, 108. Bali new cases, 62, up a little bit from the other day. Bali recoveries, 56, and Bali deaths, 2. And so, we're holding steady. This is a stable situation right now for us. Still want to see the numbers come down. Let's hope that things improve and that we've gotten to the point in terms of vaccinations and natural immunity from having the disease that we're going to stay stable or go down. There's still a big push to do boosters, and every day here in Buleleng, the government has a list of places that they are going to be giving them out. Okay, let's get on with the main stories for today. And some more on flights. Good news, good news, good news. Perth-Bali flights, low fare king AirAsia returns to route. So a major boost for international and domestic travel for Western Australia. The largest low-cost airline in Asia is coming back to Perth in mid-May. And apparently there's a sale war going on, so Virgin Australia and Qantas are launching massive seat sales to get bums on seats. And I've heard the costs are really low right now. Is that true? If you want to make a comment, let us know how much you paid for your ticket from Australia. The return of AirAsia to the Bali route is expected to start a fare war with Australia's Jetstar, which has already set the bar low with $99 fares for its first service starting on April 9th. However, according to this article, all the $99 fares have been snapped up, and the lowest one-way lead-in fare is $149 and $95 for a return flight. Without fanfare, AirAsia, the airline that has dominated the Bali market for years with up to 4 services a day, has quietly put Perth to Bali flights back in the system with 6 flights a week from May 15th. The airline group has been the low-fare champion on WA holidaymakers' popular route, with sales fares typically below $100 one way. However, the current one-way fare before the official relaunch is $188, and an AirAsia spokeswoman confirmed the low-key restart, saying, while there are some limited flights on sale from May 15th, we are in the midst of confirming our new season schedule, and we will be in a position to announce the remainder of our 2022 services from Perth to Bali as soon as travel restrictions ease. I'm not sure what the travel restrictions are. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the Perth-Bali route was the most popular international leisure route for West Australians, with up to 6 airlines operating 9 flights a day. Wow! Carrying over 450,000 passengers a year. 450,000 just from Western Australia? That is amazing. I knew that Aussies were, well, they've been switching off over the last few years with China. When you're China is the number one, when you're Australia is the number one. But as I mentioned in a segment in the last video, a lot of Australians consider Bali to be their second home. And so that is good for getting people back to work here. And some more flights coming into Bali. Good news, Qatar resumes regular flights to Bali. So Qatar Airways has returned to Bali, occasion marked by the landing at 5:31 p.m. on Sunday, March 27th, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner flying from the airline's hub in Doha. And so good news. I love flying. I flew on Qatar once. Wow. Very nice. The aircraft carried 222 passengers, and it returned to its home airport at 1 a.m. on Monday. Because of its reputation as a full-service premium carrier and its global network, the return of Qatar Airways will facilitate Bali-bound travelers originating from Europe, Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. Initially, Qatar Airways will operate 4 flights each week to Bali on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, returning to Doha on Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. According to the general manager at the airport, the Gusta Ngurah Rai International Airport is now serving a regular schedule flown by Qatar Airlines. This brings to 6 the number of international destinations now actively connected to Bali. Those are Narita, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, Kuala Lumpur, and Doha. And international airlines now landing in Bali: Garuda, Singapore, Jetstar Asia, Scoot, KLM, Malaysia, Jetstar, Qatar, and AirAsia. The general manager said he was expecting more international flights to be landing in Bali soon as a strong recovery in global travel continues. The arrival statistics for March through the landing of Qatar on Sunday: 21,253 international passengers arriving and departing from Bali on 192 flights. And so, good news. Numbers are going up. So the government has been talking about going from pandemic to endemic. And well, here's an article in Jakarta Post, COVID-19 endemicity explained. And so the word endemic has become quite a buzzword in Indonesia as the Omicron-fueled surge of infections and hospitalizations and deaths continues to decline. And the government is continuing to ease restrictions that have been in place since the early days of the pandemic. And I have had a few segments talking about the government and their plans to go from pandemic status to endemic status. In broad terms, an illness becomes endemic when rates become static in a given geographical location, meaning that the pathogen causing the disease is likely to remain in circulation without causing large outbreaks. Experts have said for COVID-19 to become endemic, enough people needed to have immune protection from it, either through natural infection or through vaccinations. But with research suggesting that antibodies against the virus wane over time, thus the need for boosters and the emergence of new variants that could render vaccines less effective, questions remain on whether long-term immunity against the coronavirus is plausible. According to virologist from Udana University, Pakmardika, he said that although antibodies against coronavirus naturally wane over time, it's not the only tool that the human body uses to fight COVID-19. He said even when neutralizing antibodies against coronavirus in a person reach zero, the person's memory B cells and memory T cells will remember the virus. He said these defenses do not prevent reinfection, but they do help to prevent severe disease. He added that most people would not need another dose of vaccine after getting the third shot, except possibly for vulnerable people such as health workers, people with underlying health conditions, and the elderly. He continued, the public should not be overly concerned about the emergence of new variants, because unless the new variant is vastly different from its predecessors, the immune system would still be able to recognize it and offer adequate protection against severe symptoms. And epidemiologist from Griffith University in Australia, Dickie Budiman, who is always quoted in the Jakarta Post, he said it's still possible for a disease to become endemic even when the virus mutated frequently. He said HIV, for example, is one of the fastest mutating viruses ever studied. But so far, we've been able to be successful in keeping it as an endemic disease. And according to University of Indonesia School of Medicine professor Chandra Yoga Aditama, the pandemic will be over when WHO's expert committee declares that it no longer qualifies as a global emergency. He clarified, despite this, every country has the right to designate COVID-19 as an endemic disease within its borders. What are the criteria for this? He said, not precisely defined, but the WHO released guidelines in 2020 on public health and social measures in the context of COVID-19 that included indicators to assess the level of community transmission in a specific region. These can be used, he said, to determine whether an outbreak in a given area was under control. Indicators include case incidences, number of case incidences, hospitalizations, deaths, testing positivity rate, and the virus's effective reproduction number, the RT, capital RT, small t. He said, scientifically speaking, we could declare COVID-19 as an endemic if the testing positivity rate is below 5% and the RT stood at 1 or below for a long period of time, like 6 months or a year, which means in that case, we're not going to get to endemic status for quite a while. What is RT? RT represents the number of new infections estimated to stem from a single case at a particular time. An RT number above 1 means the outbreak is in ascendancy, and if it drops below 1, the outbreak is withering and dying out. And Dr. Mahardika said that the decision to declare COVID-19 endemic is more than just a public health policy. It's also got political and economic factors that need to be considered. Because designating a disease as endemic means that fewer resources and funding will be available to combat it, because it will no longer be considered a public health emergency. And Health Ministry spokesperson Siti Nadia Tarmizi, our old friend here, told the Jakarta Post that after COVID-19 is declared an endemic, the government would no longer subsidize treatment and medications for the disease, meaning that everybody is going to have to pay for their own medicine and treatments. Okay, that's not going to be good for people that don't have the money or aren't insured. While many countries, including Indonesia, are eager to shift to endemicity, Griffith University's Dr. Dickey warned that COVID-19 could still pose a substantial threat to public health even after it becomes endemic. He said endemic in itself does not mean it is good. Many serious diseases, including TB, tuberculosis, and HIV, are considered endemic, yet they kill millions of people each year and impact the economy greatly. And even after coronavirus is declared endemic here, major outbreaks and waves could still occur, and that might mean a return to epidemic levels in Indonesia, which is when a disease spreads unexpectedly or quickly across geographical areas or populations. So endemicity is not something that is final or permanent, especially considering COVID-19 is an outbreak-prone disease like dengue or measles. However, instead of occurring ahead of the rainy season like dengue, a coronavirus outbreak would likely happen following holidays when mobility is high, like at the end of Ramadan. You know that I'm very concerned about education internationally, in the US, in Indonesia, particularly here in Buleleng. Here's an interesting article about after-school tutoring, and my granddaughter does that. Now she does dance lessons, and she still started English lessons. I'm not sure why, but she came up with a really cute video that she did for her English class the other day. And my kids also did some after-school tutoring, and it's called Less here. And that is very common for kids in Indonesia. And so, does Indonesia's after-school tutoring culture indicate a failure of standard education? So many Indonesian students attend after-school tutoring sessions to get a better grasp of the material that they're learning at school. But the success of these agencies may point to some problems with the state of education in Indonesia, according to this article. After-school tutoring services are the go-to option for parents who are concerned about their children's academic performance or for students who have specific goals in mind, such as passing a university entrance exam. Price ranges for these can go from as little as 25,000 rupiahs to as much as 1 million for private lessons. The 25,000, of course, would be for group lessons. Since the pandemic began, the role of these after-school tutoring companies has grown, especially after significant learning interruptions that resulted from schools shifting to online learning. And as you know, if you've watched this channel at all, I've been very critical of online learning here in Indonesia. It is not very good. But as you heard, there's a wide range in fees, and so not everybody can afford to do after-school tutoring. And so that raises several questions about why after-school tutoring has become so important, and if the country's standard education system is failing to serve all students. According to a graduate from one of Indonesia's educational programs in the university, she said, when teachers give instructions in school, they tend to give only materials without any clear explanation because of time limitations. She complained that the questions are always far more elaborate than previously given explanation, and the questions she's talking about on test. One thing that was important for me, she said, in choosing tutoring service was the exercise bank, and she's referring to a collection of supplementary practice questions that many tutoring agencies offer. She said the service that she picked had the right kind of questions which helped her pass her exams. And just to be fair, after-school tutoring is not only found here, very common in China, Korea, and Japan. Kids go and take classes after school. In Korea, sometimes as they get closer and closer to graduating from high school, sometimes they're in school from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. So a lot of pressure on those kids, much less pressure here in Indonesia, where education does not have the kind of importance, value placed on it that it does in, say, Korea or Japan or China. And so if you have any children here, what do you think about it? Or if you're a teacher or a former teacher, what do you think about the after-school tutoring activities? I'd be interested to hear what your opinions are. Leave a comment below. And how has the no quarantine policy been working out? Well, overseas visitors increase after no quarantine policy applied. Report. So the Law and Human Rights Ministry recorded a significant increase in the number of international travelers at Ngurah Rai Airport and at Soekarno-Hatta Airport in Java after the implementation of the no quarantine policy. The airport here recorded 7,317 international travelers from March 13th to March 24th. Okay, wow, that is not bad. And numbers have been picking up in Jakarta too. The number of travelers as of March 25th, international travelers, 2,470. So looks like the policy is working, and so the government will be keeping it, I'm hoping. Apart from Indonesian citizens, the international travelers were also mostly Australians, of course. And I know there are a lot of Australians that watch this channel. The majority of people are Australians that watch this channel. And I know how people have wanted to get back, and so they're coming. It was recorded that more than 200 Australians are arriving at the airport per day. And when we get flights in from Perth, direct flights in from Perth, I've heard that's going to pick up the numbers even more. And another place in Indonesia is ready for tourism. Labuan Bajo ready to receive tourists as COVID-19 cases down. And so according to the deputy head, West Manggarai District Julianus Weng, cases in his district are only 7 on Saturday, and a decrease from 13 the previous day. And on March 9th, the number of daily cases in the district was up to 218. But it's down to manageable numbers now, and so they're ready to go for tourism. So the deputy head expressed his pride in the first dose vaccine coverage in the district is 97.2%, and second dose coverage is 78.6%. And right now, the local government is working on accelerating the booster vaccine. And he said for the safety of visitors, the district government has issued various policies on health protocols against the virus infection, and travelers must be able to show vaccine cards if they want to enter the district. So if you want to go to Labuan Bajo, you're going to need to be vaccinated. And Labuan Bajo is one of those places called Beyond Bali that the government was pushing as getting people out of just Bali and seeing the rest of Indonesia. And I can't support that strongly enough. This is such a beautiful country. It's not Canggu or Ubud or Kuta or Seminyak or even Buleleng. There's all these other islands. Start over in Lombok. Go to Sumbawa, where I lived for 6 years. On to Flores, where I wanted to go. If you've got the time and the money, Raja Ampat is amazing. I would like to go back there. And not to forget Maluku's. I love the Maluku as well. I'm still looking forward to doing some domestic traveling with my kids once this is all done and everything is easier to maneuver. Last video, I talked about in the update how Singapore was going to start no mask wearing if you were outdoors, and that started yesterday. Well, what else? I said there was going to be some more. And so what else besides the no mask wearing? Increased group sizes from 5 to 10. More employees are being allowed to go back to their workplace. Increased capacity limits for larger events and settings, and the return of live music. And so Singapore is ready to get hopping. I would like to go back. I haven't been to Singapore since, I think, 2009. Has it been that long? Wow, a long time. And this article, I'm not going to go through this article, but this is a commentary article, and it's pretty good. I like it. It's done by a freelance writer from Singapore, and she's talking about how we can't forget the lessons that we've learned during the pandemic. And some of them, social distancing, of course, not applicable to Indonesia. She said people in Singapore have space now. Everybody is not crunched up against each other. And being more community-minded, thinking about other people, looking at new ways to do things, looking at work. Is it going to be necessary to be back in the office 5 days a week, 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock or 9 o'clock, depending on your jobs in Singapore? I've been talking to a lot of my friends from around Asia about what things are going to look like after that. My friends from Japan and Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Australia. How are things going to look? Are we going to go back to work like before? What about school? Is there different ways to do schooling, particularly with higher education, with university life? There are a lot of changes that can be made there. What about increasing the online presence, the way we do things, using online and freeing us up for other things, more family time, more individual time, a lot of different things that may come out of this mess for the last 2 years. And, well, she concluded her article with, I'm going to keep wearing my face mask when I'm in crowded places because I want to help keep the community safe, not just from the pandemic, but from colds and flus. And so it's worth a read if you've got time. Here's an interesting local story, and if you've been in Indonesia for a while, you've heard of these, I'm sure, before. If you haven't, these are not unusual. They happen actually quite frequently, and I've been involved in several cases of this. What is that? Hypnotism. Yes, people being hypnotized by bad guys. So a 60-year-old woman gets hypnotized, 400 million lost. Being a hypnotic spell is called Gendam. And so there was this 60-year-old lady in Denpasar, and she was approached by a man who said he worked for the bank. He said he could give her some foreign currency, euros, and all she had to do was exchange some gold. And yes, so she got some gold jewelry out of her room along with some cash, some rupees, and she exchanged it for euros. Well, she was going to get the euros, but as soon as she gave him the money, he disappeared. He took off. Shortly after he left, she came to, realized she had been hypnotized. When her family came home, she reported it, and then they got her to report it to the police. And so the police are looking for the perpetrator. And yes, these things do happen in Indonesia, but I've never heard of them happening to any foreigners. Anybody, if any viewers have had any experience with people being hypnotized that they know, foreigners or locals, feel free to comment. I would like to hear about it. And what about some local Buleleng news? You know I love Buleleng news. Hospital BOR in Buleleng still at 1.5%. The BOR, of course, is the bed occupancy rate. And there are confirmed cases, of course, going down in Buleleng, just like everywhere else. The bed occupancy rate has stayed stable at 1.51%. There are only 4 people in hospital beds in Buleleng, and so not a dangerous number. The coordinator for the Data and Information of Buleleng Regency COVID-19 Task Force, Ketut Swarmawan, said that this is good news, and he hopes that there's going to be no further cases, but the people have to remember that this is not over, and they need to continue to follow the health protocols, and if they have not been vaccinated, they need to get vaccinated, and if they haven't done the booster, they need to do the booster. And I'm going to be waiting for a couple of months before I do the booster. After I had COVID, I read that you have to wait for 3 months, and so I'm looking at sometime around June, July, and we'll have to see how that goes. Okay, what is happening in Bali, and particularly what is happening in Singaraja, Buleleng? And there's going to be some tours, and if you've watched this channel before, or if you've looked around here, you may have seen my Singaraja snippets, my 15-minute city tours, which I am going to go back to doing now that I'm feeling better and the weather is getting better as well. And so you can watch for those. Those will be coming up starting next week. But the district government is also going to be doing some tours. District Secretary of Buleleng, Dr. Gede Suyasa, along with other important people from the government, they launched the Singaraja City Tour program with flag hosting ceremony at RTH Bung Karno at one of our open green spaces. The City Tour program aims to introduce historical tourism of Singaraja City since the era of imperialism, colonialism, and independence. This is an educational tour that is going to have 2 starting points. One is going to be at Bung Karno Park, and the second one will be at the Old Buleleng Port, or usually called Buleleng port, and that is right over there, just what, 400 meters from the house or less. And that sounds interesting. And there's a YouTube that you can watch about that, and the link is somewhere here, up here, or down in the description. I'm not sure. And so that's interesting. And you can go to the museum here at the old port, and well, there's not a lot of stuff there, but it's a good start, and you get a free pamphlet. But you do have to do the Peduli Lindungi app to get in. And some more in tourism in Bali. Tourist visits begin to increase at Ulun, Danu, Beratan. And that's always a popular place for tourists to visit. Great photo opportunities with the temples there by the lake. And it's very popular with local people as well as domestic and international tourists. And so this past Sunday, it was crowded. Previously, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was unable to pay the salaries of dozens of employees. According to the public relations and marketing chief of the area, Iputu Suarya, he said normally there are around 80 employees who are working, but since the pandemic, no. He said the dozens of workers have come back to working full time because of the increasing number of tourist visits, with the average number of visits per day at 250 to 300 people, not bad. While on Saturday and Sunday, the numbers reached 350 to 500. And the increase in visits has been going on since last February, when the rules changed so that you didn't have to have a test if you were an Indonesian citizen to travel between places. He said for 2 years after COVID-19 struck, our daily visits were down to 100 or even less than that. Although there's been a gradual increase in the number of visits to the area, the dominant visits are still domestic tourists who come from the island of Java. He said foreign tourists are not crowded. We get 1 to 2 people. The most we can count them. We're all right. But with all these people coming in now, and I talked about that in a different segment, I think you're going to get a lot of people up there again. It's a beautiful place and it's cool as long as it's not raining. And he said that he hopes that with everything changing, the new policies from the government and tourists starting to come in, he hopes to see an increase there, and he hopes that the government does not change their policy again, because he said every change impacts tourists who want to come to Bali, and that is so true, as you all know. Okay, it's time for the update and wrap-up. And on the update, there's several stories out about the Bali provincial government enforcing setback rules from the ocean, and I talked about this situation a few videos ago. It seems that a number of businesses are going to be torn down by the government, and I will talk more about this in detail in Sunday's video. But this could have some big impacts on businesses here, and what is the government going to do about these huge places that are right close to the ocean? The beach clubs. And the other day I was talking about confusion about the CHSE hotel, and did you need to go to a CHSE hotel? And well, that's apparently been cleared up just by practice. People are not being asked, and they're just going wherever they want to and not being asked about transport either. And so that's good news. Unfortunately, it caused a lot of confusion when it happened. I just saw a social media post today about a woman who just got off the plane last night, and she said it was simple, it was perfect. She went right through, breezed right through. She was asked for the Peduli Lindungi app. She said she didn't have it, and that was it. Nobody pushed it. And if you've been here for a while, you know that sometimes enforcing rules depends on who you're talking to. Some people enforce them and some people don't. Yeah, that's just Indonesia. And there's rumors that the VOA is here for all of Indonesia right now. They're just rumors, I think perhaps fueled by a story that was in Tempo yesterday where Pak Uno said that it should be extended. The headline for the story made it seem like it had already been extended. But if you read through it, he said it will be done eventually, but the government is working slowly on this. So slow and steady. What does that translate to in terms of a date? Nothing available. There's supposed to be a number of changes coming out starting April 1st, and we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen, because April 1st is only 2 days away. And we'll talk more about that as the government starts to release information. I don't want to jump the gun on this one. Okay, and what about the wrap-up? Well, good news stories today, and I like that. It's nice to feel positive. Nice to feel positive. My granddaughter has started her own YouTube channel now since Grandma and Grandpa are both on YouTube. Her first attempt, she filmed by herself with her smartphone, and there are a few little problems with it, but it's all about a science lesson that she learned about motion. And so you might want to take a look at Zoe's video, and there's a link up here to it. And really not much else today. There's a short segment on Jammu coming up on Sunday, along with a longer one about rendang, right, that I talked about. We're going to do that. We finished it, and I'm just in the editing process right now. And the rendang was delicious, by the way. Wow. My wife is an amazing cook, I have to say. A little crazy, but an amazing cook. And I was asked the other day by Frankie, my new friend Frankie, who you probably read his comments here. He's been commenting for a long time, and he's here in Bali now, and he stopped by. And he was asking what I thought I would do once the virus situation ends, because these videos, most of them are called Bali COVID-19 updates. Well, I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, reporting on what's happening around Buleleng, Singaraja, the island, Bali, Indonesia as a whole, and the region sometimes as well. There'll be a few more Singaraja snippets, as I've said, because I'm getting better, and some short trips outside in Buleleng, which I had done before. I have a bunch of them that I've just never edited, because I don't know, I'm not sure what the point of some of them is, and so I have to kind of figure that out. When I started this channel, it was started originally for my kids and my grandkids, just so that they could look back on this when they got older and they could see what Singaraja was like, a kind of a historical document. I am an anthropologist in addition to being a teacher, and so I'm interested in the cultural development, historical development. It was basically a family channel, and it kind of morphed into something else, and I appreciate the viewers and the subscribers, and I hope that you will stick with us as we begin to move into the new normal, and we have less to talk about in terms of virus, thank God, and more about good news and what's happening here and how Bali and Indonesia is going to work once we move into an era where the virus becomes endemic, not pandemic. And that's a really long segment if you want to watch that. If you're not interested in learning about endemicity, well, you can skip that one. It's a long one, but I was interested in it. And that is about it for today. If you found this helpful, informative, amusing, non-irritating, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Videos are every Wednesday and Sunday. And on Sunday as well, we have the cooking videos that we're doing, and we are going to continue with that. My wife has a lot of recipes, and I think we're going to be doing ayam betutu this Sunday, which will be then uploaded the week following that. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe. And I will see you on Sunday.